Let me start by saying, as a landless woman, I refer to myself as a farm daughter of a farm worker. My mother was a farm worker and my father was a farm worker. So all these years been struggling for land. Still today we struggle for land. So in the beginning we were saying that women are women being landless, and we refer to the situation where women do not have access to ownership of land. And we especially talk about, in general, about farm workers. And this is a very negative impact on our total well-being. Land is often a key source of food and income and security. It is often the result of discrimination, culture, and legal practices that limit women's rights to opportunities. So in the case where we're talking about when you stay on a farm, you the house, the deed of the house or the contract of the house is not in both the men and women's name. It is only in the name of men. So when the men died and the women stay, to continue staying on the farm, it's always difficult for her, because he will face evictions, or she will face dismissal, or she will be asked to marry another man on the farm, just to make sure that that the slavery continue, the slavery of women, and the rights of women are really deprived from them. So in that terms, we do a lot of work to educate women to know their rights, especially when you will work on farms. Efforts to address include promotion of women land ownership, improving access to credit and resources, and advocating for policy and legal reform. So as I say, we do a lot of RWA. We do a lot of work around women's rights and the rights to access to land for women. As we work on the farms and in the rural areas, we see it's just women who own the small plots of land, who owns the backyard gardens, who work the land, and men are also only the beneficiaries, you know, who get the benefit out of not being hunger, because women are planting. So in that case, we do a lot of work on that. Where's this thing now? And for that fact, we usually find that farm workers who work daily with food production and working the land often go hungry to bed. This is key to our work. It's also Kasawa works with farm workers who every day complains and say, although we work with the food, we pick the fruit, we pick the grapes, we work with the production on the land, but it's still, we still remain poor, we still remain landless, and we still remain, we still go hungry to bed, although we work with the workers with the production and with the workers of the land. But we, as farm workers, are always going hungry to bed. So these are the issues that farm workers are living with, especially farm worker women, who always are the seasonal workers and not the permanent workers. Men are the permanent workers and women are seasonal workers. So it put a lot of strain on women to put food on the table, provide for their families, but also working the same pace as men, but still women still earning less than men. The daily struggle of women, especially farm worker women, that are working under very harsh conditions. Now, just a small history of myself, and this is not just my history, it's the history of the woman who sits with me today, who's been from childhood born on a farm. My parents have been farm workers until today, but until today, we are still landless, while the owners the farms, the commercial farmers' children, they are now the new generation of who is on the land. Not us or our parents who've been on the farms for many, many years. We get that you get here that a farm worker worked 29 years on a farm and then being evicted the same way that he was born and grown up, and their parents are buried there. They stay evictions in the so my history is, like I say, this is not only my history, it's the history of many, many farm worker women. And I think many of us who's in this Zoom meeting today can relate to the issue of being on the farm, working on the farm. But still, some of our parents are working under the children of the commercial farmers. My parents have grown up the farmers' children, but still today are slaves. I'm also saying the roles of patients are critical, and we should never underestimate the role that we are playing and that we're feeding our communities and our families. Because if we don't have the peasant women and men in our communities who's doing farming and doing productions, then the hunger will be grown and still be so huge. We live in conditions where you get that there's too much food insecurity into families today. We get the grant from the government, but it's not enough to sustain us. It doesn't make us to feed our families in the way that we have to feed. We have to always rely on what government are giving us, while we are saying it's not that we want anything from the government. We want to plant our own food. We want to be the providers of our own families, and we want to build our own families. So sometimes I think we underestimate what we do as peasant farmers. We underestimate our role that we play. Also, government is undermining our role that we play. They don't see or agree to the role that we are playing. But I also think many of the rights in the peasants' rights are in UNDROP, but I also think these rights are not new to us. If I look at our constitution in South Africa, we have the right to land, we have the right to food, we have the right to dignity, we have the right to freedom of speech, we have the right of to be safe, but the rights in UNDROP are not different from the rights in the constitution, but still we are deprived from these rights. So, but government still ignore the contributions of peasant governments, won't push the implementation unless we as poor peasant farmers are pushing very hard the implementation of UNDROP. They are not going to let us have what we deserve unless we fight for ourselves. As a result, we have started the One Woman campaign. I'm not going to read the whole pamphlet, but this is a strategy to help us fight for land, for access to land for women. But not only for land, we demand land for food, we demand land for water, we demand land close to us, which is not far and we are in danger. We demand access to land, water, and seeds. This is the mark into the One Woman, One Hectare campaign. But we also link the One Woman, One Hectare campaign, and also we link the issue of GBV towards the access to land. Because we believe, and I think this is the belief of every one of us. If we have the stability and we have the independence of have our own production and our own money, we can leave our abusive relationships that some women are in. So we use the 1 woman 1 hectare is a strategy to fight for access for women. And this campaign introduced to local municipalities, and so they are saying there's not enough women who fight for land. And we say we are fighting back, and going to fight back to have access to land for women so that we can feed ourselves, so that we can make that we are not go hunger to bed. This is strategy now. Yeah, so I will end up by saying that in a big sense, there is also one of the significant moments where we say that the rights of peasants must be implemented and the rights of women must be recognized by all governments. We can't live and stay silent about our rights. They're not giving to us. It's the right of women for us is RWA, and we will still continue fighting for our rights. Thank you.
My presentation is on seeds. In this case, we are talking of farmer-saved seeds. A seed is a living matter used to reproduce. Once it's sown, it germinates, grows into a plant that has all its traits and taste. These traits can be color, nutrition, and maturity. These seeds have been there since creation of nature. The main guardian of these seeds is a rural woman. If you go into the villages, you find that it is only a rural woman that is still keeping these seeds, the old seeds. She is a guardian of the seed. And the overall objective of these women keeping these seeds is to utilize them, use, save, and share, in short, produce a nutritious food and medicinals, as well as reduce dependency and reduce the production cost. So let's go to the next slide. A rural woman has always used and saved and shared for generations and generations. The seeds have ended up in the hands of a few individuals with the objective of profits and not nutrition, medicinal, taste, or color. You'll find that most of the seeds we are talking about, for example, maize is only in white color, but we have so many colors of the seeds in maize. So you can only find those with women. Because of the power they have made policies that protect their interests. The interest is, that is what those policies. And they've called our seeds grains, because they are protecting them in the seed banks and the main benefit, and not the rural women. When we give them these seeds, we give them our seeds for free, we give them our knowledge for free, but when these seeds are in the seed bags, the people who benefit most are the people who have these policies. The seedmen who are guardians is now. So we all know that whoever controls seeds controls food. Whoever controls food will control nations. What we want is our farmers' rights back, because our seed is our right. The seed we have is our identity. We are not to be Africans because of what we eat. Our seed is our culture, our seed is our pride, and our seed is our heritage. These seeds were passed on from our old ancestors to now. So we want this UNDROP implemented because we want this to be promoted and protected. So this is what rights, but they were taken away from us. We want our right back. So this UNDROP that is there will help us achieve our rights.
Good afternoon to sisters. I am unable to use my camera because I'm using my phone, which is not able to access the camera now. I'm going to speak about the right to food. Right to food is a basic human right enshrined in the 1996 South African Constitution. This promise raised hopes to poor and vulnerable people for a better and dignified life. Nevertheless, after almost 3 decades, this fundamental human right is still a dream and yet to be realized. Millions of people in South Africa continue to face poverty, hunger, and malnutrition. Statistics indicate that 1 in 10 South Africans go hungry every day. In 2017, 5.50% of people were hungry. And in 2020, the number has increased to 6.90%. And remember, the majority of these people are women and children. The effects of COVID-19, climate change, and our trademark load shedding accelerated the percentage of hungry people. In the Right to Food fact sheet published by South African Human Rights Commission in 2020, it stated that South Africa has signed several international agreements binding them to ensure that, number 1, to respect existing access to adequate food, 2, protect and provide measures to ensure that companies or individuals do not deprive other individuals of their right to access to adequate food. And number 3, fulfill and promote actively engage in activities intended to strengthen people's access to resources that can be used in food production, including land. These international agreements include the UNDROP, that is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Peasants, which South Africa signed in 2018. And it encompasses the right to food and sovereignty, Article number 15, right to land and other resources, Article 17, right to seed, Article 19, and right to water and sanitation, which is Article number 21. We are in the 5th year after signing, yet still no policy for UNDROP implementation. In November last year, South Africa was under review on UPR processes of United Nations on Human Rights. Canada recommended that South Africa should uphold the rights affirmed in the UNDROP, including to consult and cooperate in good faith with indigenous people on legislative or administrative measures that may affect them. Article 15, right to food, not just food, but food sovereignty. Food sovereignty is a food system in which people who produce, distribute, and consume food also controls mechanization and policies of food production and distribution. This is in contrast to the present corporate food regime, in which corporations and market institutions controls the global food system, meaning that the producers, the poor producers on the ground, they do not have any say in producing food. Right to food and food sovereignty stand on 3 pillars. That is right to land and other resources. Number 2, right to seed. Number 3, right to water and sanitation. Without these 3 things, we cannot have any right to food. We cannot have food without realizing these 3 articles. The right to food and food sovereignty cannot be achieved unless peasants has land, water, and indigenous seed. The government cannot win this war against hunger and malnutrition by itself without the involvement of us as producers. After all, the government has already failed. It is almost 30 years now into democracy. We still have people who are hungry today. It's high time that South African government heed the call of Canada, New Zealand, and Tunisia to involve us in food policy making. We can no longer wait for the government to invite us to develop UNDROP policies, but we should create them and push the government to adopt and implement these policies in our favor. Thank you.
My name is Bonsile Mamba from Rural Women Swaziland. I'm going to speak about women peasant struggles and how we intend to participate as peasants and as small-scale farmers. I'm going to outline the challenges that women peasants face. These challenges are not an exception from all the challenges that general women face worldwide and women in Southern Africa and in Eswatini. We know that women are regarded as carers, housewives, tending livestock, and we are oppressed as women, always taken as second-class citizens. We know that most of the time we are mostly evicted from our own ancestral land. Access, ownership, and control of land is still a challenge amongst women, more especially amongst peasant women. As women, we face triple struggles with regards to our participation in policy formulation and laws that pertain to peasants or small-scale farmers. The biggest challenge is, as women farmers, adhering to required standards of producing and marketing our farming produce has always been the greatest challenge. Hence the scarcity of us as women farmers to access markets, because the standards that are laid out by the big multinational corporate companies is so much for us to adhere to. And then I also highlighted that poverty has the face of a woman generally. Now with the peasant woman, it's even worse. And then the other challenge is with regards to women's involvement in local community councils, where our participation is still minimal. We know in local community councils, it is where most of developmental discussions are done as to how the community needs to develop, access to land and the rest. You find that most of us women, as I've highlighted above, that we are regarded as carers, as housewives. Now we are not regarded as people who can make decisions even with local authorities. Now, I want to highlight struggles that rural women have participated in, and wherein we think, more especially, I will take the Swazi example, where we think as Swazi women, we have managed to to actually challenge and be successful. In Eswatini, way before, we were not allowed to own land. We were required to have a male son or be married. Then women challenged that up until the 2005 constitution in Swaziland allowed everyone to own land regardless of being male or female. So we have section 211 of the Swazi constitution, which now allows women to get a plot of land without being married or having a male son. However, there are still chiefdoms who still require that to be done. It means those chiefdoms are not yet knowledgeable about the constitution. We have had many women highlighting that they have not been able to get land because those chiefdoms still want them to be married or have male sons. So we are still continuing to challenge that as rural women in Swaziland. Then as part of one of the struggles where we've participated and think we are getting somewhere, is that we have revived community seed sharing banks and household seed banks as a way to boost food security and food sovereignty in Eswatini. My other sisters will share how they have done it in their countries. There are so many examples that sisters can share where we think with regards to our participation and challenging the status quo, we have managed to pull some strides and are making progress. This is a picture of some of our women displaying their seeds in one of our functions. The next slide, please. Then finally, the recommendations that we want to make as rural women, recommendations that will make us improve our participation in small-scale farming. As women, we need an urgent need to popularize the UNDROP, all the 27 articles, the first being the one outlining what UNDROP is. We feel by popularizing it, we'll be able to challenge the status quo. Countries like Eswatini and Lesotho, where UNDROP was not signed by our governments, we need to start somewhere and being assisted by the countries that actually signed. Then the second recommendation is we need an urgent, there's an urgent need for public policies and resources for agroecological production as a tool and strategy for climate mitigation. We also need to put in place agroecology policies which safeguard the rights of women to agroecology. We need to strengthen women's access and control over land. This is still a challenge, even though we have mechanisms, policies that are in place that seeks to, recommend women to have access to land, but this is still, we still have a long way to go. Then we also need legislative frameworks that promote local seed sharing and selling of farmer-safe seeds and not criminalize practices that peasants have used for generations so as to promote corporatized systems. We have large corporations, as I've highlighted before, in the challenges that we are unable to access markets because of the standards that are set by the large corporations. So if there are legislative frameworks that could be in place that seeks to promote local seed sharing and selling of farmer-safe seeds so that our indigenous seeds are not looked down upon. Where we also need governments to support and further adopt and implement public policies that seeks to promote production and consumption of agroecological food. With these sisters, we think our participation as peasant rural women can go a long way in making sure that our involvement and our indigenous seeds And the call for ending hunger together with, interlinking in UNDROP and the other instruments that the UN system, including the SDGs that have been put in place, we think it can make a difference in making our participation successful. Thank you.